Good morning, students. Today we are going to learn about the chapter 1 of class 12, that is reproduction in organism. Reproduction, very familiar terms you have heard from your previous classes also. Every living organism has the property to reproduce. But the question here is why they reproduce or what is the need for reproduction. Very familiar answer for this is there that they want to continue their kind, they want to continue their species, they want to continue their kind. But now my question is why they want to continue their kind, why they want to continue their species. So they must have some need for reproduction. The need lies in their fixed lifespan. All living organisms have a fixed lifespan, that is the duration between the birth and the death. Like you can see, mayfly has a duration of 1 day, butterfly has a duration of 1 to 2 days, week, sorry. Wheat plant has 6 months of duration. It means every living organism it dies after some times or some years. So to overcome this process of death, these living organisms they reproduce. This process of reproduction is a biological process similar to the nutrition, where we, for survival, we take in the nutrient. For oxygen, we respire. For supplying the nutrient to the different body part, we carry out the circulation. Similarly, to maintain our life in different forms in the next generation, the living organism they undergoes the process of reproduction. So when the living organisms are reproduced, they are continuing their life, they are continuing their kind because they know the death is there. To overcome that process of death, birth is there. So the birth is the process which overcome death. Just like a hunger, we are hungry, we overcome it by taking in the nutrient. Now there are the different types of the organism which have a different mechanism to reproduce. That mechanism are different because of their variation is there. They show large degree of variation, so all organism cannot reproduce in the same manner. Further, they live in different habitat. In the different habitat, they have a different life cycles, they have a different behavior, so they reproduce differently. Further, they have a different internal physiology, that is their life, you can say reproductive structures or the different physical processes or the biological processes, formation of gametes, not formation of gametes, that differ. All the other factors, that is how they survive, their breeding seasons, their breeding mechanisms, they differ from organism to organism. So that is why the different organism they have different mechanism of reproduction. But broadly, we can classify the process of reproduction into two different forms. That is on the basis of participation of one or two organisms for reproduction. So on this basis, we have a two different type of a reproduction, that is asexual and sexual reproduction. These two reproduction includes all the various different types of the modes by which the living organism reproduce. So thus, we will first study about what is asexual reproduction. In this mode of reproduction, only a single parent is involved. The single parent or rather single cell which is completely capable of producing a new individual or offspring. And these offsprings are genetically their structure, their traits are similar to the parents. Not only the parents, but the other individual produce along with them. So they are morphologically also similar, that is their structure and the shape is identical. So that is why they are generally referred to as a clones, means the identical copies. Now these organisms they are produced from the body cells or the somatic cell. No specialized cells are formed. No specialized organ is there like the reproductive organ. And there is no meiosis, that is a reduction division is not taking place. It is a very common mode in the single cell organism or the unicellular organisms where a single cell when it divides it reproduce. So the cell division itself is a mode of reproduction in these organisms, that is a unicellular. Not like us, because when the cell divide in our body, we grow. we increase in our size, but not in this case. So coming to the next mode, that is the sexual reproduction, it involves two parents or two distinct organs. Why I'm saying two distinct organs? Because the organs may be present on the same parent also, as seen in case of plants. These parents or the organs produces a specialized cells, that is gamete. Now these gametes contain half the amount of the DNA or the chromosome, which is known as a haploid cell. Now, what is the need for half the amount of DNA? Because if the DNA amount increases in the cell's character or the trait may differ. So, to maintain the amount of the DNA is also very important. That is why specialized cells are formed by the process which is known as meiosis. By this process, the specialized cells are formed. These cells make a gametes which contain half the amount of DNA and the chromosome. Now, these two gametes undergo fusion, that is, process is known as fertilization, and they produces a new cells which is called as zygote. Now, the zygote contains the genetic material from two different gametes, so it is a diploid, that is, a double the amount from the single cells. And this is the first cell for the next generation in a sexually reproducing organism. As the genetic material is coming from two different organisms, it shows high degree of variation. Remember, reproduction is for the survival of living organism. Similarly, the variation has a very important role in the survival. More the variation, more is the chances of survival, because every time there is a increase or the change in the condition of the nature. With the change in the condition of the nature, those organisms which can adapt or survive, they will continue their kind. So the variation helps them to adapt better and to survive so that they can reproduce. But the non-living or the asexual organism have less variation. We have already seen they are the clones, they are the identical to the parents. So to overcome this problem of survival, they produce in large number. As we know that the bacteria, they divide very fast. Even after 20 minutes, each bacteria divide into two. When they are dividing at very fast rate, large number of bacteria are produced. These large number of bacteria thus increasing the chance of survival. With the change in the environmental condition, a few of the microbes they die, but few can survive. So they have made their own mechanism to increase the chance of survival. So first we will study about the various types of the asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction, whereas we have already seen that only single parent or cell is involved to produce a new young ones, which may be two or more than two in number. So there are the number of methods of asexual reproduction, which can be by binary fission, spore formation, which can be by budding, which can be by fragmentation, which can be by regeneration, and so on. But first we will study about the first method, that is the fission, where the single cell divided into two or more than two to form a two or more than two daughter cells. This fission is very common in the unicellular organisms. It occurs in two forms, either the binary when divided into two or more than two, that is called as a multiple fission. The binary fission, where the single individual cells divide into two daughter cells, occurs in different ways. It depends on the plane of division. The first type is a simple binary fission, where the plane of the division is not determined. The cell can divide in any plane, but the division of the cell is determined by the elongation of the nucleus. The cell always divides perpendicular to the nucleus elongation. So if the nucleus, you can see in the picture, elongates from up to down, the cell will divide from left to right. If the nucleus elongates in any of the direction, the division of the cell will be perpendicular to that direction. Now coming to the second type, that is called as a longitudinal binary fission. In this, they have a definite plane of division. that is the longitudinal axis, or along the longest axis, that is the length, where you can see the nucleus elongate along the width and the organism it divides along the longest axis into two, very commonly observed in case of euglena. The third type which is there is a oblique binary fission. In this, the organism it divides in an oblique manner. Oblique means slanting manner, up from one side and lower from the other side. Very commonly observed in case of protistans like the dinoflagellate Serratium goniolux, where they have a shell and the shell has a groove. The organism divides along the groove. The upper part of the shell will form a lower part and the lower part will form the upper part. So in such cases, the division is along the groove, which is generally going oblique, and that is why it is called as a oblique binary fission. The fourth mode of the binary fission is transverse binary fission, where the organism divides along the shortest length or the plane, that is a transverse plane or perpendicular to the longitudinal axis. As seen in the paramecium, you can see it is dividing along the width, the nucleus elongates along the longitudinal axis, and the organism is dividing along the width. These are the four different types of the binary fission. One is a simple or the irregular binary fission, longitudinal binary fission, oblique binary fission, and the transverse binary fission. The second type of the fission is called as multiple fission. In the multiple fission, the living organism or a unicellular cell encloses itself in a thick covering called as a cyst. The nucleus within the cell divides repeatedly to form a multinucleate cell. Each nuclei now gets surrounded by a cytoplasm and enclosed in a plasma membrane, as a result of which there are the number of the cells within a single cyst. When the favorable condition arise, like we sow the seed in the soil or put them in the water, the seed coat ruptures and the seed germinates. Similarly, when they get the favorable condition, the cyst ruptures and the cells within the cysts are released, which absorbs the nutrient and grow in size. So thus the single cell, as seen in case of Plasmodium, the malarial parasite, which can divide repeatedly into number of the cells, and their rate of division is very high. So they also increase the chance of survival. So this is the first mode of asexual division, that is the fission, which is of two different types. One is a binary fission and second is a multiple fission.